Okay. So, Attorney Reed, of course, I'm just going to do this little formal and um, opening remarks, and then you can, I guess, get started because even though we don't have anybody here, I do expect and anticipate people are going to watch it as we send them to this channel. So if you're just joining, welcome to the flat property tax, along with Attorney Mario Reed, who is our subject matter expert, Trustee Cassandra Matz from Olympia Fields. She's here. And of course, it's me, Trustee Adam Winston from the Village of Glenwood. We do these flat tax sessions the first and third Wednesday of every month. During this election time, people ask me, well, what are you going to do about the taxes? I'm just running for Bloom Township Committeeman. And I tell them, look, I'm already working towards coming up with solutions long before I decided to run for a Bloom Township committee person, which has nothing to do with the taxes, but it just shows you my interest in making certain that our communities are operating and we're getting the most out of those representatives. So this is not something new for me, and we've been doing this for a while. So Attorney Mario Reed, you have the floor. Welcome. Again, it's good to see you. Happy Juneteenth and 1st of July, and it's all yours. We are recording, so if you are joining us live on Facebook or so on and so forth, this is being recorded, and you can always go back and revisit the presentation if you need to by going to Adam Winston Flat Property Tax. You should be able to find it, and I'll put some other keywords in there. So Attorney Reed, it is all yours.
Thank you kindly, Trustee, and happiest of Juneteenth, Independence Days, and July as a month. So greatest of evenings to any and all tuning in, or mornings or afternoons, whenever you may be watching this. We are going to get started. So my name is Mario A. Reed, and I am an attorney with a law firm here in South Holland, Illinois. And tonight we are going to be discussing the plan for a flat property tax. I want to be very specific and make sure that everyone's aware that we are advocating for a flat property tax. A lot of times people confuse it with a flat income tax. The state of Illinois already has a flat income tax. So there would be no reason for us to have to advocate for it because we already have such a tax. What we are advocating for is a flat property tax. If the flat income tax works and Illinoisans resoundingly voted in favor of retaining that flat income tax, we are asking for the state of Illinois to implement a flat property tax. And by doing so, that will lead to tremendous property tax relief for any community that has a property tax rate over and above 15%. So before I get started with throwing out numbers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of explaining why it is that we need a flat property tax and why the Constitution for the state of Illinois supports such a proposal. So here in the state of Illinois, we are governed by the Illinois Constitution, just as all 50 states are governed by their state constitutions. Most people think that the United States Constitution is the only constitution, but for those of us who attended the 7th grade here in Illinois and took the state constitution test, hopefully you're aware. In the state of Illinois, anybody, or anywhere in the world actually, but here in Illinois, we can find our state constitution by just Googling it. Go right to Google, type in State of Illinois Constitution, and it will bring up the entirety of the state constitution. All 14 articles are laid out in the overview. What we're concerned with is Article 10. So Article 10 relates to education. In the state of Illinois, the state government has the primary responsibility for the health, welfare, and well-being of its citizens. That comes from the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, the United States Constitution, and creates what's called the police powers or states' rights. That's what gives the states the rights to enact their own state constitution. Our Constitution was most recently ratified in 1970, 11 years before I was born. And as a part of that state constitution, it specifies that when it comes to education, and I'm going to zoom in on this to make sure that anybody who's watching the replay has a good look at it. When it comes to schools, the goal is for free schools. The Constitution is not very subversive or very elusive in explaining that the goal of Article 10 is to create free schools. And the fundamental goal of the people of the state is the educational development of all persons to the limits of their capacities. The state shall provide for an efficient system of high quality public educational institutions and services. Education in public schools through the secondary level shall be free. There may be such other free education as the General Assembly provides by law. And this last portion of Section 1 states that the state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. The state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. That is, in a nutshell, what it is that the flat property tax is rooted in. It is rooted in the fact that the state constitution for the state of Illinois explicitly states that the state of Illinois has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. So that's the basis for the conversation in which we're having. Now, the next step is what does it mean, primary responsibility? So when we look at what does primary responsibility mean in the law? Well, according to the law, primary responsibility means an activity that is fundamental to and or required or expected in the regular course of employment and is not merely incidental to employment. It's a necessity. It is a requirement. And when it comes to the financing of our public schools, the state of Illinois has the primary responsibility, meaning that they should be contributing at least 50.0001%. That's the expectation that the state constitution has laid out. If it costs $100 million to fund our public schools throughout the state of Illinois, then the state of Illinois should be contributing $50 million and $1. That's what this is translating to. The state of Illinois should be contributing 50.001%. So if it's $100 million that's needed, the state of Illinois should be contributing $50 million and $1. Now, the question is, how much is the state of Illinois contributing? Well, that information is also available just by going to the Illinois report card for schools. And there's a website that is illinoisreportcard.com. And anyone has access to this information. I want to make sure that everyone who's watching this video back is aware that you have the same access to this information. That's why I'm going to Google and showing it, because you can follow these same steps. If you need to slow it down, feel free to do so. But all you do is go to illinoisreportcard.com and then type in your school district or type in the name of your city. So I'm going to type in Glenwood. And when I type in Glenwood, it tells me that they have one high school. And nope, this is a different Glenwood. Good to know. Good to know. So, I'm going to type in District 233, HSD 233. So that's Homewood Flossmoor. And taking a look at Homewood Flossmoor, it's going to bring up a district snapshot. This district snapshot is going to show really what it is that's going on with the finances, as well as with the graduation rate, with the retention, all of those different indicators. Homewood Flossmoor's high school district only has one school, and that is HF. Their school has a remarkable 96% graduation rate. And I say that because even though they have a 96% graduation rate, their funding is right now less than 70%. The high school HF, according to the Illinois State Board of Education, needs $39 million in order to be adequate. However, in 2021, they only received $27 million. That is less than 70% to their adequacy target. And when we talk about adequacy, we're not talking about clicking on all cylinders, being an exceptionally funded school. We're talking about bare minimum, turning the lights on, paying the teachers' salaries, making sure that there are enough books and resources, funding for their extracurricular activity programs. All of those right now are being funded at a rate of 70%, and that's based on their adequacy target. The State Board of Education sets the adequacy target. That's what it is that is applicable. So when it comes to those district finances, we have the luxury of being able to see, well, where's the revenue coming from? So the revenue percentages shows how much is the state of Illinois contributing. So as we talked about, the state of Illinois has the expectation of contributing at least 50.001%. Right now, the state of Illinois only contributes 30.2% to Homewood Flossmoor, which means that the local taxpayers have to make up the difference of 68.5% because the federal government is giving them 1.2%. That may very well be the smallest federal contribution that I've ever seen in the entire time of doing these workshops, not even 1.5%. And that is very problematic because if you live in Homewood, if you live in Flossmoor, if you live in, I believe, parts of Glenwood, also send their children, parts of Chicago Heights also send their children to Homewood Flossmoor. If you're in this school district, you are contributing 68.5% to the funding of the school, and the school is right now being funded at a rate of 69%. So imagine if the state of Illinois was contributing 50.001%. Now, one thing that you can take solace in is the fact that the state of Illinois is actually contributing more than the average. The state of Illinois, on average, contributes just 27%, which is barely half as much as the state constitution says it's supposed to be contributing. So remember, we looked at the state constitution, and the state constitution says, state of Illinois, you need to give 50.0001%. But when it comes to the state on average to all public schools throughout the state of Illinois, right now, the state of Illinois is contributing on average 27%. And that is the reason why in the southern suburbs and in most Black and brown communities across the state of Illinois, whether it be Rockford, East St. Louis, other lesser affluent communities, that's the reason why our property taxes are so high, because the schools make up the primary percentage of our property tax bill. And right now, instead of the state of Illinois covering half of those schools' financial needs, property tax owners, local property owners, and taxpayers are having to foot the bill in a drastically over disproportionate manner. And that's what this is all about. The flat property tax is seeking to make where the state of Illinois responsible for contributing at least 50.001%, and ideally getting to the point where it's well above 55% or 60%. In the state of Michigan, the state government contributes approximately 69% to the public schools, and the local property owners only have to contribute 14%. Right now, we are more than 5 times as much as the Michigan property owners. So that's what the flat tax is about. It's saying the Constitution says the state has the primary responsibility for funding the system of education. We know the state of Illinois currently isn't doing that. How can we assist the state of Illinois in getting to that point? That's what a flat property tax is all about. The problem is state's not paying enough. What's the basis for us knowing the state isn't paying enough? The state constitution. What percentage is the state contributing? 27%. What percentage do they need to get to? At least 50.001%. That is the analysis that we are undertaking as a part of this. So when we look at a community such as, or a school such as HF, like we talked about, thankfully, their graduation rates are through the roof. They're 96%, well above the state average. But let's talk about other communities, because even though HF definitely isn't receiving the proper funding that it deserves, right now they're still doing well in large part because there's a certain level of affluence that exists in the communities such as Homewood, Flossmoor, Glenwood, and the surrounding areas that send their children to school. But let's talk about a school where the affluence isn't quite there, anywhere close to what it is when it comes to Homewood, Flossmoor, and the like. When we talk about District 227, and this district is near and dear to my heart because I am an alumni of that district. I graduated from Ritchie's High School before that school was closed. Currently, there are two high schools, two buildings. I guess technically it's only one school, but Rich Township High School District 227 has one building. That school needs $53 million to be adequate. Currently, that school is only receiving 77%, which is well above what we saw with HF, but you see how the graduation rate is much less. It's 83%. That's 13% behind HF. When we talk about retention and absenteeism, 54% have chronic absenteeism. That's an unbelievable number. More than half the student population is absent from school. They struggle to retain their educators, and it's in large part because when you don't have enough money to pay your staff, it's going to create issues. Now let's take a look and see what the funding is all about. So we're only receiving 77% in Rich Township. And then when we look at the district finances and we go to our revenue percentages, Rich Township, 72.6% of the funding for the schools comes from the local property taxpayers. 21.6% comes from the state government and only 5.7% comes from the federal government. This means that almost 3/4 of the school bill is being foot by the local property owners. Well, that wouldn't be a problem if the local property owners had the money. But what's the median household income for Park Forest? Because that's the community I grew up in. That's the community which sends its students to Rich Township High School District. And the median household income is $53,000, $53,938. The median property value is $73,600. This is quite problematic because if you only make $54,000 a year and your home's value is only worth $74,000, you can't afford to cover the cost of the public school education. And that's because that is what's going to be essentially at stake for coming up with the funding. So we have a couple questions that we're going to address, and I see Trustee Winston has brought himself back in. So,
and Attorney Reed, again, thank you very much. I'm going to read off just a question, so we can take a pause, and if we got some more questions, you could take that. Can you explain when a village or a city says that they're going to freeze your property taxes? What does that really mean in terms of true relief?
Great question. So whenever a municipality or any layer of government, whether it's Governor Pritzker or if it's the school board, whenever they say they're going to freeze your property taxes, they're not actually saying they're going to freeze your property tax. It means that they're going to freeze their levy. And when they freeze their levy, it simply freezes that portion of the bill and ensures that it doesn't increase. So I'm going to pull up a tax bill because it's going to help explain this concept a lot better. So here is a property in South Holland, Illinois, in the 171st block of Kenwood. And anyone has access to this information. It's all public record. So I want to make sure everyone understands what I'm getting ready to show you is not secret, or it's not as if though I'm showing you someone's personal information. This is public information that pertains to this particular property owner. So on your second installment of your tax bill, it shows the breakdown as to what each taxing body is looking for. And when I say looking for, that means how much money they need or what percentage of a levy they need in order to fund that particular body of government. So when we look at, for instance, the village of South Holland, if the village of South Holland comes out and says, hey, we are freezing the tax rate, we are freezing the property taxes for the village of South Holland. What that means is that their levy is going to stay the same. And when we talk about levy, that's the portion or the percentage that that particular body of government is asking for in order to run government. So in this case, in 2020, of the property owners, let's say in this case, the $6,300 tax bill, approximately 21% went to South Holland. So South Holland is saying if they elect to freeze the property taxes, they're saying we're not going to increase our levy at all. And the exact same amount we asked for last year is the same amount we're going to ask for this year. Now, that could mean that when my tax bill comes out, hopefully at the end of this month, the percentage that the village of South Holland is receiving may be less. And that's because if the schools go up, then that means that the South Holland percentage is going to go down. But in terms of a freeze, they're not giving you any relief because they're saying what I asked for last year is what I'm asking for this year. And no relief comes through that. The only time relief comes is if they say we're going to reduce our levy. And if they reduce their levy, then potentially there could be some relief because let's say they reduce their levy by 25%, but then the schools increase their levy by 25%, it's a wash. So whenever you hear of a municipality saying we're going to freeze our tax rate, or we're going to freeze our levy, or we're going to freeze your taxes, all that's saying is instead of asking for more money than we did last year, we're just going to ask for the same amount. We're going to stay flat. And you don't get relief if it's flat. Imagine if the gas stations came and said, we're going to freeze the gas rate, the rate of gas. And they said it right now. Well, if them saying we're going to freeze it doesn't provide us with relief other than relief from them increasing. And that's not truly relief. So when it comes to that statement, what they're saying is we're not going to ask for more money. Now, one of the things that I want to do this time that I don't normally do is we're going to pull up the tax bill for the first installment because this gives people a better look. So right now we're looking at the tax bill for the first installment. On your first installment of your tax bill, it shows what each of the primary taxing bodies needs. So when we talk about the amount of money that's owed by your taxing districts, for South Holland schools, they need $3,305,000. For the village of South Holland, they need $28 million. This is how much money the village of South Holland needs. So if South Holland says we're going to freeze the tax rate or we're going to freeze your property taxes, they've come back and said in 2022, we need $28,031,844. That's the amount. Now, them saying that we need $28,331,844 again this year doesn't provide us any relief. In fact, it actually is going to result in more than likely someone's tax bill continuing to go up. And the reason why is because every year, seniors are now paying less because someone who was 66 last year is now 67. And because of that, they're going to qualify for the senior exemption. So if my neighbor paid $6,300 like I did, but now they've turned 67, so they qualify to get the senior exemption, now they're going to pay $800 less. So guess who's going to have to pick up the difference of that $800? Well, I'm sure you'll say, well, yeah, $800 isn't that much. Well, $800 times maybe 100 or 200 or 300 seniors in your community now begins to add up. So even when a municipality stays flat, the taxes still go up for the majority of us because if we're not a senior, we're not getting those discounts. But every year, more seniors are joining the ranks of seniors. So that's another key part. Can a levy be reversed, and does that request have to go to vote from the residents? So the answer is yes, a levy can be reversed. And does that request have to go to vote from the residents? It depends on the municipality. Some of you may be following what's going on with Matteson, and I didn't check the election results, so I'm not quite sure how it panned out. But Matteson was petitioning and urging its citizenry to support the initiative for it to become home rule. That's part of what home rule is. Home rule says we get to basically turn ourselves into a miniature dictatorship. And when we want to make a change to the levy, the municipal government can do that without necessarily having to go through the hoops that exist. So any municipality and any taxing body can always reverse their levy up until it's collected. Because up until it's collected, they can make any changes. The great part about levies is that the clerk's office actually is the watchdog, if you will, to make sure that municipalities aren't, and taxing bodies in general, aren't increasing their levies more than what the state constitution and the state government allows for. So the answer to that question is yes, a levy can be reversed all the way up until it's collected. And even after it's collected, technically it can still be reversed. That's when you see rebates. So whenever Thornton Township is a prime example, every year for the last 5 years that I've been here in Thornton Township, I guess, 5 years because we haven't gotten the 6th year yet, there's been a rebate. Frank Zuccarelli would travel all over the township and say, I got a rebate for you. And it's because the township didn't spend all of the money that it had collected. So when it gives a rebate, that's technically a reversal of the levy because they're saying we didn't need to collect all this money. We didn't use it. And because of that, we're going to give it back to you. Now, sometimes that check might be like $94, but again, that's essentially a reversal of the levy because they're saying we didn't need for our levy to be this high and we didn't figure it out until after we spent all the money for the year. So that's a great question. It passed. Okay. If it passed, that's goodness. All right. What's going on with the governor giving money back in checks from interest on
Stay
property?
focused, Attorney Reed, and stay focused. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. It shouldn't have. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So it's a case where, much like so many other referendums, the people don't actually do the research. They don't have a full understanding and grasp of what's at stake, and they oftentimes vote against their own interest.
You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about that? I'm just, but it never passed in Homewood. They never go for that. So
well, it's because it's an informed citizenry.
There it is.
Yeah, it's a very informed citizenry, and it's a case where it's a lot easier to be informed in good times than it is in bad times. And that's a reality for Matteson. Matteson is hungry for something, anything, because when you drive up and down Lincoln Highway and get towards Cicero or you get past Kedzie and Pulaski, it begins to look bleak. And when you start to hear from people and you've seen some economic development, you say, well, if they were able to do this, giving them more power will hopefully result in more of this, without a full understanding that administrations are often temporary, but the rules that govern them are long lasting and have everlasting impact. So
and also just to piggyback off that, they technically they could have waited. I think they have what, 20,000 residents. They automatically would have gone to home rule anyway once they hit that, I think that 25,000 threshold. So
yeah, but that's a long, so 19,000 to 25,000.
I know, yeah.
Without having a draw is a huge, that's a very wide chasm. And if I'm the leadership, it makes perfect sense. I want to be able to rule as efficiently as possible, and home rule gives that authority. But like with all of the other things that happen, we'll see how it turns out. And ideally, it's for the best. That's my hope with every initiative. Now, in going back to what the governor is doing, so the governor, to the best of my knowledge, isn't providing a rebate on property taxes. It's similar with the freeze. So the expectation is that there's a freeze. But let's take a look. So Governor Pritzker, property tax rebate. Let's see what's going on. Oh, we're on a one-time property tax rebate for homeowners. The break will amount to a 5% rebate on however much the homeowner paid in property taxes, though it will cap at $300. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there it is. So it's good to see. So the state is rolling out a one-time property tax rebate for homeowners. The break will amount to a 5% rebate on however much the homeowner paid in property taxes, though it will cap at $300. The direct payments officially in income tax rebate are only available to those who file state tax returns. So he's given a credit is what it amounts to. So very similar to the earned income credit, that if you have children and your income is below a certain amount, you get an earned income credit. The governor has created this harebrained scheme to say, I'll give you a 5% rebate on however much the homeowner paid in property taxes, but it's capped at $300. If you live in the southern suburbs, like that's not even 1% of your tax bill. So it's very interesting. So we'll take a look and we'll see what percentage is $300 of my tax bill. So for the tax bill that's just in South Holland, mind you, so $300 divided by 6295.07. It is 4%. There we go. So excellent. So now I get the $300 credit. So if I was going to receive a return on my income taxes come next February, when I file my income taxes from the state, I'll now get an extra $300. If I was going to owe, I'll now owe $300 less. So that's what that looks like. And again, the question is going to be, well, where's that funding going to come from? Because anytime that money is being given back to people, that means it's coming out of some line item. And who knows what that line item is? Maybe this article talks about it. Okay, you got $104. Congratulations. That's fantastic. I'm sure that is going to ease your property tax burden like nothing else. So, and in getting to the easing the property tax burden, one of the things that we look at is the tax rate. So every single municipality throughout Cook County in the state of Illinois has a different property tax rate. And that is one of the most illogical things ever, because when it comes to your property taxes, the assessed value is already going to fluctuate. Sometimes it's going to be high, sometimes it's going to be low. But to also then have your property tax rate fluctuate means that you have zero predictability in how much your property tax bill is going to be. So you live an entire year in your property and you don't find out what that property tax bill is going to be until 10 months later on average. So we're getting ready to pay 2021's second installment of the tax bill, and we won't know how much that tax bill is going to be until August 1st, like if we're lucky. The Board of Review has came out and said that because of the shabacle that the assessor's office pulled with switching over its software, it could be later than that. But potentially we're talking about 9 or 10 months later, we're finding out what our property tax bill. But it's in large part because we don't know what our property tax rate is. In the case of South Holland, the tax rate in 2017 was 17.1, 2018, 17.9, 2019, 18.7, and in 2020, we got the COVID relief, so it dropped down to 16.5. While these numbers are reasonable in comparison and contrast to other southern suburbs, when it comes to communities such as Barrington, Burr Ridge, and Hinsdale, these figures are astronomical. And I want to show you what those figures look like. And again, all this information is public record. So when we go to the Cook County Clerk tax rate reports. Every single year, the Cook County Clerk, currently under the auspices of Karen A. Yarbrough, is required and obligated to publish the tax rate report. And for 2020, which is the last year available, all of the tax rates for all of the municipalities in Cook County are available. Anybody can pull it up. This information, again, is available online. Hopefully your internet is faster than mine so that this document downloads a lot quicker, but it shows you what every single municipality throughout Cook County pays in terms of their tax rate. Most people are unaware that when it comes to the 3 highest property tax rates in all of Cook County, those communities are Park Forest, the Village of Phoenix, and the Village of Fort Heights. 3 of the lowest income communities in Cook County, oftentimes having an average household income below $40,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to look at who are the 3 highest and who are the 3 lowest. Well, the 3 highest were Park Forest at 35.46%. Remember that percentage that I just put up for South Holland? It was 17%. Park Forest is twice as much. The Village of Phoenix is 28%. The Village of Fort Heights is 27.9%. When it comes to the Village of Burr Ridge, when it comes to the Village of Hinsdale, when it comes to the Village of Glenview, those municipalities are 6.5%, 6.7%, and 6.9%, and the city of Chicago is 6.91%. What that means is that if you live in Burr Ridge and you have a house that's $100,000, and that same house is for $100,000 is in Park Forest, the Park Forest home is going to pay 7 times. No, I'm sorry, 6 times, because 6 times 6 would be 36. Going to pay 6 times as much in property taxes as the property in Burr Ridge. 6 times as much. And it's not going to receive 6 times the services. It's not going to receive 6 times the quality of education. It's not going to receive 6 times anything having to do with the property taxes. It is exclusively and entirely because right now the state of Illinois is not contributing its fair share to education, and that's what we need to change. If you live in Hinsdale, your tax bill is going to be 1/5 of what it would be in Park Forest just because you're in Hinsdale, and there's more affluence in Hinsdale. When we go to look at Burr Ridge, what is the median income in Burr Ridge? Household income. So remember we saw Park Forest and their median household income was $53,000. Well, the median household income in Burr Ridge is $159,335, 3 times. The average household in Burr Ridge makes 3 times as much, brings in 3 times as much income as Park Forest. The median property value is $686,600. In Park Forest, it was $73,600. That is almost 8 times as much. So the households make 3 times as much money. The houses are worth 8 times as much money. And because of that, and because of our jaded and broken public school funding formula, the property owner in Burr Ridge now gets to pay a tax bill that's 1/6 of the proportionality that a Park Forest homeowner pays. For the same house that's $100,000, Burr Ridge is going to pay 1/6 of the property tax bill. Now, to put that further into perspective, look, 2 Novembers ago, back in, it would have been 2020, there was an election where we had the opportunity to increase and transition to a progressive income tax, to go from a flat income tax of 4.95% to a progressive income tax, where the more money you make, the greater percentage you are expected to pay, but only on the money that's made over the threshold. So it's a marginal tax. If I make 100,000, anything up to 100,000, I pay 4.95%. But then if I make 101,000 up to 200,000, then I may pay 5.95%, but only on the 100,000 over the initial 100,000. That's how marginal taxes work. That's how our federal income tax system works. It is a logical, very practical approach. The more money you make, the more you should be expected to contribute to the betterment of the society that's helping you make that money. Very ideologically sound, very basic, a very socialistic concept. And yes, here in America, we are a socialistic country, which is why we have public schools and public roads and police officers and firefighters and all of those different social services, a military, elected officials, all of them paid by the taxpayers. Now, in getting back to, so in Burr Ridge, the state of Illinois said, let's cap how much they pay in income taxes. Well, in doing so, that's fantastic, because if I'm in Burr Ridge, I'm paying the same income tax rate that Park Forestian is paying, which is 1/3 of my income. But we currently have a system where we have a regressive property tax system where, irrespective as to how much your home's valued at, your tax rate is going to be directly connected to how little money is in your community. So because your community is expected to contribute to 73% of your public schools, right now, if you live in Burr Ridge, it only takes a little bit of money or a little percentage to come up with enough money to fund your public schools, because each house is worth $687,000. Well, if you're in Park Forest and each house is only worth $73,000, now we have to take a much larger slice of that pie. So if we're taking $6,000, let's say that it takes the same amount of money. $6,000 is 6,000 divided by 73,600 is roughly 8%. So we have to take 8% of the Park Forestian's home value in order to fund the public schools. But let's say that we have the same number of students in Burr Ridge, so we need $6,000 to fund them. $6,000 divided by $686,600 is less than so it's 0.008%. It's less than a 800th of a percent. So 6% of your home's value is taken in Park Forest to fund your schools, which, by the way, aren't fully funded, as opposed to that same $6,000 amounts to less than 1/900th of a percentage for Burr Ridge. And their schools are funded at 100%. And this is why we need to go to a flat property tax. Because if we go to a flat property tax, what that will mean is that 10% will be the rate for each and every municipality throughout the state of Illinois. So if the home is valued at $686,600, your tax rate isn't based off of that number. It's based off of what's called an assessed value, which is based on a 10% assessment level. So really quickly, if we say that it's $686,600, a 10% assessment level would mean that that house is worth $68,660. So that's the 10% assessment level. And then we would multiply that number by the 10%, 0.10. So then that tax bill would be $6,886, but you get a homeowner's exemption. And the homeowner's exemption would be 10%. So that would be $1,000. So this would be the tax bill. It would be $5,866 for that $700,000 home in Burr Ridge. That's what you'd be looking at. But the difference is now for Park Forest, for that same home, that's the median, 73,600 times. So then that would be an assessment level of 10%. So that assessed value would be $7,360. We multiply that times 0.10, $736. and then it would not receive the homeowner's exemption because it's less than the threshold. So the property tax bill would be $736. So now the tax bill in Park Forest would be $736, whereas the tax bill in Burr Ridge would be roughly $6,000. And the money that's brought in would now, all the money that's brought in for schools would go to Springfield. Instead of it going to the county clerk and then going right back to the local school districts, it would now go to the county clerk, but then go, treasurer, and then go down to Springfield. And it would be sent to the Illinois State Board of Education, which would then distribute the funds wherever the kids are. And how that works out is what's called our per pupil spending. So whenever we look at the district average spending per student, it shows us it's $23,000. That's how much this district spends per student. So if the district finances, let's go, operating expense per pupil. So the state average is 7853 in 2016. That's instructional spending, and it's 12,000. We're going to do that for every student across the state of Illinois. So there won't be a difference between district and state, because whatever it is at the state level, it will be that for every single school. And that will ensure that Park Forest sees a reduction of 66% of their tax bill. Right now, they're at 36%. They would go from a 36% tax rate down to a 10%, which would cut their tax bills by 66%. If you're paying $10,000 now, you'll go down to $440, $4,400. That's the kind of savings that's going to occur, because remember, when we talk about a community such as Burr Ridge, their median property value is $686,600. That is 8 times as high as Park Forest. So now we're going to raise 8 times as much revenue. Well, if we raise 8 times as much revenue and we disperse that revenue throughout the entire state of Illinois, and that's just from Burr Ridge, it is going to now cover all of the educational expenses throughout the state, while giving property tax relief to communities which can't afford to fund their schools because there just isn't enough money in their communities. You can't get blood from a turnip, and our current public school funding formula is striving to pull blood from a turnip. So I have went now for quite a while. I'm going to pause to see if there are any questions. And if so, I want to get those addressed. But that's what we're talking about. When we talk about a flat property tax, we're saying let every municipality pay 10%, whether you're Burr Ridge or whether you're Park Forest. And with the money that's collected from the wealthiest communities, by circulating those funds throughout the entire state, it will ensure that there's more than enough money to cover all of the education while still ensuring that all of the other services are maintained.
Attorney Reed, on my end, there aren't any additional questions that have come through so far. And Trustee Matz, I don't believe she has any additional questions that have come through either.
Okay, excellent. So then with that being the case, we are going to be able to end exactly on time today, as It is 7:59 p.m. So for any who watched back the playback, hopefully it's helped. If you have questions, you can always post them. Hopefully you'll show up. We'll be doing this again on the 3rd Wednesday.
Yes.
So that will be July 20th, 2 weeks from now. We will be back in full effect. We invite any and everyone. People always ask, what can we do to help? We need people. We need people to come on and learn about this, and then bring more people to help us further the information and get the information out.
Yes. And again, if anybody wants to see why the state of Illinois needs to transition to a flat property tax, this presentation will be on YouTube. So all you have to do is Google why the state of Illinois needs to transition to a flat property tax, and you'll be able to see this presentation at your own leisure. So while you're riding the train or while you're just sitting around looking for something to do, it's very informative. And I think that as a community, we do better when we know better. So there it is. Attorney Reed, thank you again. A great job. And Trustee Matt says the same thing. So if there's nothing else, I wish you all farewell until the next time.
All right. Take care.
Have a very good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.